Hi there, how are you? It's a beautiful day down here, and I thought I'd share a funny story with you. It started a few days ago when our kids recommended to Richard and I a good series on Netflix, and we're always up for a good series. So we started the series and we watched the first episode, which was a real blockbuster. Lots of stuff went down. It was quite hard to follow because we didn't really know who the characters were, but we persevered. We carried on with the season. We went on to the next episode, which seemed to be a bit of a flashback. And in fact, then the whole series appeared to be told in flashback. It went back to the beginning. It worked all the way through until we got to the season finale. And we kind of knew where the story was going, but we were expecting it to have a bit of a different ending. And when we watched the final episode, it in fact was exactly the same as the first episode we'd watched. So we were chatting with the kids and said, hey, we loved that series that you recommended to us, but it was a bit weird how it was the same at the beginning and the end, wasn't it? And the kids looked at us and said, no, it wasn't. What are you guys talking about? And of course, the penny dropped that what we'd in fact done is that we had watched episode 10 instead of episode 1, and then carried through from episode 2 all the way to the end, where we'd watched the first episode all over again. And suddenly it all made sense. And it wasn't such a bad way to watch a series. So after the kids nearly died laughing and we got over our embarrassment, and I got to thinking about this, and it struck me it was a really good example about how a lot of people approach counseling and therapy. So there's a kind of tendency to arrive at the first session, and you arrive there when everything's hit the fan, it's all chaos and a mess, and people's expectation is that you're going to sit down with the therapist and go back to the beginning and figure out what happened and how did you get here and try to make sense of the whole thing. Now, there are kinds of therapies that work that way. I think psychoanalytic therapies often work that way, and that's really not a bad thing to do if that's really important to you, to figure things out, to figure out why you have ended up where you are. But it's very interesting because it's not the whole of therapy by any means, and there are lots of other therapies that work quite differently. For example, there's a kind of therapy called cognitive behavior therapy, which works very much by starting in the moment. What is the problem right now, and what's maintaining that problem? CBT is not too concerned about the causes of a problem in one sense, and the analogy that they give is that it's a little bit like if your house is burning down. If your house is burning down, you are not so worried about where's the match that started this fire. You actually want to figure out what is keeping this fire going. Can we starve it of oxygen? Can we find a different way of doing things? Can we tackle this thing and bring it under control so that it doesn't become a completely destructive force? And that's the way that we proceed in CBT. Another form of therapy, which is not so concerned with the past but is very future-oriented, is called solution-focused brief therapy. And this therapy really starts with now. What is your life right now? And then it looks at what is the preferred future? Where do you want to get to? So hence we have the miracle question you've probably heard about. If you woke up tomorrow morning and a miracle had happened and suddenly life was completely the way you'd always wanted it to be, what would that look like? Let's find a picture. Let's build a picture of the preferred future, and then we can find a way to work towards that. Another future-oriented therapy is narrative therapy. That can also sometimes look at stories. It can look at stories from the past, but again, it's much more concerned with how are you telling the story? Is this the story that you want to tell? Do you want to take ownership of your own story? Because maybe there is in fact a better story. There is a better preferred future, and you can start to tell your story differently because you are the author of your own story. So that's interesting. So there are ways of therapy that kind of figure out how things got to where they are, but there are also other ways of therapy that are looking very much future-oriented. So I hope that's interesting. So that was just a little lesson in psychoeducation from our silly movie watching experience. Hope that it was useful for you, and have a great day.